Please help me welcome our first speaker for today, Chris Whitlock. Chris is a partner at AI Leaders, and we are so happy to have him with us today. Chris, the session is all yours.
Super. Thanks a lot, Casey, and welcome to all. 5 million, 5 million, 5 million jobs were lost in manufacturing from the 1990s to today. That's largely attributed as a high end figure to the North American Free Trade Agreement, which, in pursuit of cheaper goods, made arrangements with other countries. Factories here in the United States shut down, factory jobs were lost, and affiliated jobs were lost. And the high end estimate is 5 million jobs. 35 million by 2030. Numerous credible estimates would say that's what we're staring at as a function of the AI revolution. And there's this enormous gamble that is going on right now. That is my perspective on what is happening, and I'll explain it in this session. The challenge for us all is we're staring at potential job displacement that is 5 to 7 times larger than what came via NAFTA. The substitution of AI for human workers, heavily oriented in the services sector, but also potentially to include an increasingly capable family of AI-enabled robots. I want to give you in this session 4 scenarios to think about as you plan individually for your family or in a business context. What are we staring at as we go forward? I have worked in this field since the early 1990s. I started as an analyst with CIA, dealing with a lot of issues where there was high uncertainty at play. I moved into the technology consulting field, and during the 90s, I ran an AI lab, a lab where we worked on algorithms to process high volume data. As I moved in my career, I finished leading AI and advanced analytics for Deloitte Consulting. When I retired, I co-authored a book, Winning the National Security Environment, or the National Security AI Competition. And that was a practical guide on how to integrate AI into the defense environment in the United States. Part of the reason is that we're in an arms race of sorts with China right now. That book published right as ChatGPT was released. And as a consequence, my partner and I end up spending the next several years teaching executives in business, government, and the not-for-profit community about the issues associated with integrating contemporary AI. Mainly generative AI was the emphasis in that context. But what got me, you can probably relate to. I was noticing, and I was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. People would ask, well, where is this all going? Where are we headed with AI? And bluntly, I wasn't very satisfied with my answers. And so I have taken 2025 to focus on this issue and asking myself, what is the best way to structure my thinking around the future? That's what I will share with you. Now, you may, as you look at this, adopt a variety of perspectives. You may be skeptical about what is coming. You may be optimistic about it. You may be a visionary on AI and you think tremendously positive and transformative. You may be worried. To me, it doesn't matter what your posture is. What we all have to recognize is the wave of investment right now is gigantic. And if you stare back at the last 35 years, there have been 4 epochs of big investment in the United States. There was one in the early to mid 90s on semiconductors that gave way to the huge internet infrastructure investment and the explosion of web-based companies in what we call the dot-com era. Shale oil in the late double aughts, that opened up the Permian Basin, the Bakken in the Dakotas, the Marcellus Shale in Pennsylvania. It really repositioned the United States with respect to natural gas production and oil production, and then the cloud infrastructure. But the message is in these multiples across the top, the level of investment in AI is multiple times larger than every one of those that preceded in the last 35 years. Notably, it's 2x the dot-com era investment wave, which ended in a bubble bursting and then a multi-year recession to recover from. My point is this, and it's simple. It does not matter, individual, family, organization. These investments have in effect represent a great gamble. And we all have to take positions now with respect to that gamble. It's either going to work or it's not. And there are implications for how it plays out. The 4 scenarios will help you put some structure to your thinking so that you can more effectively plan. Now, your industry is squarely in the impact zone. And this graphic basically partitions your industry, learning and development, 400 billion large, very well established, focused on equipping staff members, colleagues, associates, employees, acculturating them in the environment, helping them to be successful. You're focused on helping humans work. What the AI industry is doing on the other side is seeking to build capabilities now that replace humans in work. Now, you may say, well, but it could be used for augmentation. Yes, but the purpose of the augmentation is to allow each individual human to do more work. So I need fewer humans. That is what the AI industry is after. And I will share with you vividly what some of their grandest visions are. But ultimately, it is to eliminate humans in work. So your industry is at the demilitarized zone, the demarcation zone between the AI industry and what we have done over the last 100 years to better equip workers in the industrial age and the information age environments. Now, in this context, just like every other boom since the gold rush in the United States, you have to place bets. And there are 3 things to be mindful of as you look at this: risks, opportunities, and safe plays. Just very briefly, I would say this: we're all going to have risk. Risk starts in the work being done. AI is rooted to work. AI will replace humans in work. So the risk stems at the occupational and the functional level. And not all job types are equally exposed right now. There are going to be opportunities. Some of those opportunities are going to be short term as organizations transition. Some of those may be durable and resilient for a period of time. And then safe plays. The simple concept on safe plays, and I'll use one that's pretty common in the economics arena. If you take the gold rush, your maximum risk was to secure plots of land and go prospect for gold. You're looking for that precious metal. The safe play in that environment was to sell blue jeans and sell picks and sell shovels to miners. That was the safe play. Your wherewithal, your benefit was not linked to whether or not they found gold. It was linked to their pursuit of gold. And I think in this environment, there will be similar things, but understand the next 10 to 15 years promise to be really turbulent. Now, I would encourage you with this posture: resist the notion that you know what is going to happen. Be very skeptical of voices who assert they know exactly what is going to happen. I do not know. I'm going to give you a structure for looking at the news that's coming at you, for understanding the environment you're being presented with, I do not know. And frankly, nobody on this call knows. Here's the deal. We have 340 million people in the United States. About 240,000 of those are data scientists. That's my tribe. That's the one that I live in. People that practice machine learning, that work with AI, that work with a variety of advanced analytic techniques rooted in data. Out of those 240,000, there are less than 1,000 people in the United States. 1,000, less than. That's fewer than the number of NFL football players, professional football players. It's about the number of professional basketball players. And some of these cats are making bank. This past summer, there were numerous of them who were given offers of $200 million or more for 4 years of work. And that is developing and advancing foundation models, these large generative AI models or frontier models, which are really pushing the boundaries. And the reality is, none of us know any of them. We're likely to not be able to name a single one. And the rub is, they don't agree on the future. They do not agree on the future. So how in the world are we supposed to deal with it as lay people and leaders? And that's what I want to arm you with. My process was pretty straightforward this year. Just being a practitioner in the community, I have worked on models. I have led the development and integration of a number of models over time. And so I began just by asking myself, where is this going? Where is AI going? And what are the factors that we are talking about that drive the future? And out of that range of different factors, there were three that emerged as really important. Two, I think, are defining in my view, and I want to share those two with you, and then the four scenarios that emerge from them. That's what we will go through next, and some implications around that. So the first, and I would argue the most important question regarding AI and the future is, can the AI industry create superintelligence? Now, you can get these people fighting. If you get technologists and AI people in the room, what is general intelligence? What's artificial general intelligence? What's human level intelligence? What's superintelligence? The definition I would encourage you to have in mind is superintelligence is a form of computing and software that allows us to replicate and exceed the performance of humans across a wide range, all forms of knowledge work. That can be biology, chemistry, various forms of mathematics, physics, different types of engineering. We are building a capability. What they are building is a capability that exceeds human performance across multiple domains, and such that you can assemble Nobel quality minds in an environment, give the hardest tasks an organization is focused on, and they'll crank until they get a solution. That's what superintelligence is all about. So we either are going to get there or we're not, and the experts disagree. If we get there, AI is smarter than humans. The most aggressive predictions are in about 3 years, where most of the consensus tends to form is around 2035, 10 years out from now. But what that's associated with, the big gain and why they want to do it, is enormous productivity improvements. This reality has driven us, along with national security interests, to be effectively in an arms race with China. Now, what if we don't get there? AI will still be highly performant, and it is going to continue to improve. It has changed remarkably in the last 3 years. I'll give you an example. In executive education, I would have cautioned 3 years ago, do not allow it to be implemented if you're assuming reasoning, unless you have put very strict policies in place on quality controls, checking, et cetera. You're being negligent. In 3 years, it's massively changed. I mentor some younger college age people. They're using it for tutoring and calculus now. That's how much change we have had in a short period of time. Now, it is not clear that we are going to get there. Jan LeCun it's changed actually since I made this slide a couple of weeks ago. He was the chief AI scientist at Meta. And he believes that none of the current technology is an appropriate foundation for superintelligence. And he would say the large language models that are used today simply will not bear the burden of replicating human-like superintelligence. Need much more accurate and consistent reasoning. For all the progress in the last 3 years, and it's remarkable what is going on, he would say, it's still not where it needs to be to replicate consistently human performance and deliver accurate reasoning. And it needs memory. If you and I touch an electric fence, we are going to remember we are unlikely to replicate that behavior, right? AI, as it's manifest today, does not have a persistent memory. And that's an issue that the industry is working through. You can expect there is going to be progress. The question is how long? And then last, what superintelligence requires is the ability to establish a goal, parse work against that goal, plan against that work, and adjust the plan adaptively in the context of a real world model. So today we're living in a model environment that's dominated by text. It's not exclusively text, but it's dominated by text. Humans are enormously visual. Much of our brain power is associated with visual processing. And people like Jan LeCun believe the real breakthroughs to superintelligence require that recognition that we see, we learn, we see, we adapt in real time. We touch the fence, we'll never do that again. That's the kind of thing that they are working towards, and it's why they would say 2035 is a more realistic target. That has an implication. It means we're living below superintelligence for the next decade or so. Now, you all recognize The Office, I'm sure, and I'm sure that in this crew there are huge fans of The Office. I would be one of those. I love it. The reality is, even below the threshold of superintelligence, we are going to see a lot of progress with AI in the next decade to 15 years, and it will eliminate jobs. The successful application of these technologies is narrow, not broad. It's not treating it like a Google search bar. It is targeting discrete work functions. It is integrating AI into workflows to create reliable and regular artifacts, work artifacts. Back office, very successful. Entry-level roles, increasingly successful. The CEO of Anthropic, which is one of the largest AI manufacturers, predicts we're going to see 50% reduction in white collar oriented entry level roles by 2030. We simply will not have a need for that. It is migrating into front office roles and already being successfully used in those environments. And one of the keys, and you'll hear it in the news, you can't miss it, you can't possibly miss it, is agentic AI. And in this context, it is a riff on predecessor technologies referred to as robotic process automation, but you're empowering an agent with AI and connectedness to resources. And that allows this replication of human performance. Now, here's the rub. If we're creating agentic AI and we are increasingly creating capabilities that are connected to resources, can we control it? Yes or no? That is not a certainty. It is not a certainty. And one of the stupidest things that I have heard said in the past year was said recently by the CEO of NVIDIA. He said there's a 0% chance, there is no chance that we could have catastrophic outcomes with this technology. Now, at the same time, We have Nobel Prize winners like Demis Hassabis, who's the leader of Google Mine, warning about this exact thing, AI safety and control. We have Geoffrey Hinton, the winner of the Nobel Prize for machine learning and AI development. He is considered the godfather of AI, and he is warning there are big problems ahead if we don't adequately control this. It's not a certainty. And this is a question. We either, yes, can control it, and come up with ways through laws, oversight, and then internal company safety features and guardrails to control this, or we don't. And if we don't, it's less reliable, or it opens the window to really bad outcomes. This is real. This past year, ChatGPT, one of the prominent cases, a young man, an adolescent, he's using the tool. Tristan Harris, he is the co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology, and Tristan became an expert witness in a case that was being prosecuted against OpenAI, and he characterizes it this way. This young man, over the course of 6 months, began to use ChatGPT as a homework assistant, and it transformed to a suicide assistant. Did not notify his parents, did not notify anyone else. This outcome was not the intent of OpenAI. I do not believe it. No one can argue that successfully to me. Those developers did not intend for this to happen, and the company didn't intend for it to happen. This is an example of AI control failing. The controls failed. The guardrails failed. The safety features failed. There was no notification. This young man took his life, and OpenAI is not the only one that has had this issue. Character AI has now banned anyone younger than 18 from using it because they had a similar situation. And it's not just young people, it's adults. I am former military. I live in military communities. We had one of our former members drive a Cybertruck to Las Vegas at New Year's this past year and try to detonate it in a hotel. And he used ChatGPT to assist him. That was not the design of the system. That's explicitly not what they want done with this. The controls failed. The safety features failed. Those are the issues on the table. And what that leads us to is 4 scenarios. And those 4 are in the bottom left, doldrums. It's uninspiring. AI just doesn't move as fast as we think, despite this enormous investment that we have had, which is 2x the .com bubble or 2x the .com era. It just doesn't perform to our expectations, and problems ensue. Wipeout, workforce wipeout. It continues to progress, but it's below the level of superintelligence. And these predictions people are making come true. And we see in white collar work, which is 40% of the workforce, 80% of the workforce is services work. We see it land especially hard. Singularity in the upper portion, that's what the AI industry is working towards. We achieve superintelligence. We can appropriately control this technology. And it changes everything. It changes society. It changes the economy. The economy becomes explosive in productivity gains. Society radically changes. But achieving superintelligence and failing to control it opens the door to cataclysm. And the outcomes there could be bleak. And I'll give you a quick overview of these. So in doldrums, we're progressing, but it's short of what these investor expectations are. The bubble pops. The bubble could also pop because we have a recession for other reasons, and there are cascading effects. We see job loss. After the .com bubble burst, unemployment went from the nominal 4% to 6.3%. Very realistic here that over the next several years, we could see a prolonged period where unemployment rises to 6 to 8% if the AI bubble bursts and if it does not perform to expectations. If we move to wipeout, realistic predictions, credible predictions of what could come. 20% unemployment. Now, nominally, we want to be at 4%. So 5x the amount of unemployment. And the distinction that you should lock onto here is this is not an event driven issue. The Great Depression, event driven. The dot-com bubble bursting, event driven. The Great Recession of 08, 09, event driven. COVID-19, event driven. This is restructuring the workforce. This is a new, innovative, transformative technology that fundamentally changes the workforce, and we need fewer people. It's a structural, long-term change. That is the difference here, and it could be prolonged. We could have a prolonged period in this state. Singularity. This is the exciting vision they all are working towards. And ultimately, and it's a progression to get here, it's not a light switch. It's a progression to get here, but ultimately what they foresee is 20 to 30% growth in the economy per year. We currently run at 3%, 10x growth, right? That's what they're talking about credibly. And these are economists, technologies, and business leaders. Humans are not needed in work. Now, it's not a light switch, it's a progression, and the progression creates problems. But ultimately, what they foresee is a universal basic income along with universal health care. People are provided for, they do not have to work, and businesses don't really need them. Eric Schmidt, who's the former chairman of Google or Alphabet. He was the co-chairman of the National Security Commission on AI. He said, I foresee a clear future where multiple AI agents are operating in concert to run businesses. That's the kind of vision we're talking about. But if we don't control it, if they can't control it, if government does not act effectively to control it, then you open the door to cataclysm. And some of these catastrophic effects include as severe as human extinction. There are two long-standing experts in the machine learning space, Eliezer Yudkowsky and Nate Source. They wrote a book this year that was provocatively titled, If Anyone Builds This, Everyone Dies. If anyone builds this, everyone dies. And the core assertion is you cannot create a machine that is more clever than humans, that has some self-preservation interests. We have multiple countries pursuing this and not expect dire consequences. The sobering element to me is this, and you can think of it this way. The COVID-19 pandemic swept the world. 66% of Americans believe that was the result of a lab leak. We have biosecurity level 1, 2, 3, 4. Highest level is 4. The Wuhan lab was a BSL-4 lab, highest biosecurity lab. 2/3 of Americans believe that from the highest biosecurity level lab, this pandemic that swept the world was released. And we want to build supercomputers that we cannot fully control, which are smarter than people and highly connected to resources. We want it to cure cancer, but we think it won't create a bioweapon. We want it to make national security better, but we think it won't take a bad action. That's what the worriers are raising in Cataclysm. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, but these 4 scenarios are the ones that I think we all have to prepare for, with the ones on the bottom row being real and current. Here's something I would encourage you to watch out for. AI leaders, the AI industry leaders like Jensen Huang, Sam Altman, Dario Amodi, et cetera, they're very excited. And they tend to dismiss the impact to society and to workers. Often, people will cite the transition from carriage making to automobiles. And they will say, hey, we did that seamlessly and everybody ended up better. There were more jobs. Not relevant. And many of the historical examples they cite are not relevant in my view. Let me show you from the business census data in the United States. Here is a span of basically 40 years looking at carriage manufacturers and related employment. and then automobile related employment. And what you'll notice there, that dashed line, is carriage employment never exceeded 100,000 people. Automobile manufacture rocketed by, call it 1920, to 350,000. And here's the takeaway for me. Alexander Winton was one of the early innovators in automobile manufacturing, and he wrote a long form essay in 1930 about this transition period. And what he noted was this: the people working in carriage manufacture were craftsmen. They had a wide variety of skills. Those skills transitioned very seamlessly into manufacturing of automobiles. In fact, many carriage manufacturing businesses switched and became automobile manufacturing businesses in the early years. And then over time, the work became routinized and rote and automated. But the point there is, it was a seamless transition. That's not what we're talking about now. They are building computing capacity that exceeds the capability of humans, that would exceed the capability of Nobel quality minds. And you can gather dozens of them to work on your company's hardest problems. There's no beating that. And we should take with great skepticism these notions that it's going to be some seamless transition. I don't buy it. I think we're looking at a turbulent decade to 15 years. And I want to walk you through one way that this could play out. It's one way. But we start with the current economy. If you're a naysayer and you're oriented to, I think this AI stuff is hyped, I don't believe it, it's not going to get there. There are consequences of that belief. The investors who have placed this massive amount of money are not doing it for funsies. They're looking for a payoff. In order for it to pay off, businesses have to use it. They have to adopt it. If businesses are going to adopt it, they're not looking to add costs. They're looking to reduce costs. So Morgan Stanley would say, we're looking at $1 trillion in labor cost reduction over the next 5 years or so in order for this to pay off. There are huge questions about whether it will or not. Will there be a bubble or not? Will this pay off or not? Experts disagree. So one scenario is that it does not pay off and we end up in doldrums, and it's a multi-year recession and it hurts. And there's a decline in employment. There's a rise in unemployment. Now, the alternative is, hey, you people have been poo-pooing this are wrong. It works. And we see companies like Salesforce, like Palantir, many others like ServiceNow, increasingly adopt and integrate AI into their workflows and functionality. And we see the kind of decline people are predicting. And unemployment, structural, long-term unemployment rises to 20% or so. We could well stare at that future and live in it for a while. And individuals, families, and organizations need to prepare for that because there are consequences. Now, maybe we break through this threshold and we achieve superintelligence. Expert consensus is 2035. Okay, good. It still takes a while for that to be adopted and to have the fullness of its visualized impact. So beyond 2035 is clearly, I think, the expectation for this scenario. But understand that's what they're headed towards. And if in the interim we do not effectively control it, then we're opening up the window to cataclysm. We're opening up the window to the COVID-19 of a superintelligence powered era. Now, this guy, Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, he's written 2 really impactful essays, one of them in 2021, and it was entitled Moore's Law for Everything. And he basically asserted this dual-pronged thesis. The AI industry carries the burden of creating superintelligence, which will unlock all these enormous positive attributes associated with the singularity. But on the other hand, social policy has to change, or read those yellow words to yourself from the hand of the man who is CEO of ChatGPT and OpenAI. Most people will end up worse off than they are today. Most people will end up worse off than they are today. Now, one of the ways that we have avoided that over the past 125 years in particular, certainly the last 100 years, is that the government acts as a form of shock absorber to economic contractions, recessions, and change. And I want to walk you through just very briefly what that looks like in this instance. The scenarios in some order land on the economy, which here I represent as GDP, gross domestic product. That is the demand side view of our economy. What do people buy in the economy? Ours is about 30 trillion large. And the equation that you see there, we're not going to do any math. C equals consumption. That's what you and I buy. It's the clothes we buy for our kids. It's the dinners that we eat out. It's the food we buy at the grocery store, vehicles, etc. Consumption. Investment, that's 2/3 of the economy, by the way. For the past 70 years, it's roughly 2/3 of the American economy. Investment and government are forms of spending. Businesses buy stuff, end items that they use. Government buys stuff. Those are both significantly smaller, but significant. And then you have the export function. That's exports minus imports. Doesn't matter here. Here's what matters. If you take consumption, it is underpinned by 168 million workers, people who are making a wage and spending their money in the economy to buy what they need. 168 million workers, 80% of them are services. We're talking about potentially eliminating half the white collar work. Financial analysts, accountants, lawyers, some nurse and doctor positions in the next 5 years. Some believe that a lot of that can be automated. Consulting work, automated. Analytic positions generally, automated. Much PM work, automated. That's what we're talking about. And if that happens, Morgan Stanley wrote this summer, we believe there will be 40% wage compression in the next 5 years. 40%. Now, if 40% wage compression, how can that not affect consumption, right? How can that not force businesses into a situation where consumers can't pay as much? They now cannot afford those things, and businesses are going to have to transform with that in mind. Now, normally, the government over the past 100 years would spend in recessionary periods. If the economy contracts, the government would execute stimulus spending or tax incentives, some combination. We've done that historically. That is not a given right now. We have a massive debt. It is the result of all political parties and all participants to it over the last 60 years, especially, and from the 1980s on, especially. That's going to muddy the waters for Congress. But worse, and you should pay attention to this, we get the money to fund the government. Federal revenue is largely a function of income tax. 50% of federal revenue is income tax. Another 35% of federal revenue is a copay, joint, equal between the employee and the employer to fund things like Social Security, Medicaid, etc. If wages are going to go down 40% in the next 5 years and we're going to see a rise in unemployment, how does that not land hard on federal revenue? And if the Congress has less revenue to rely on, then your only lever is debt. And that's the dilemma that we are facing. We have an industry that is propelling us at rocket speed down this path towards these four scenarios. We have a Congress that is dealing with a bad hand of cards, and whatever administration that comes in, a bad hand of cards. And that's what I have written about. This book will be released early in 2026, American Roulette. And I'm trying to arm people at the individual, family, and business level to think about this, understand what is coming, so that they can then plan more effectively. In an organizational setting, educate and align leaders, get them on a similar sheet of music here, and craft some viable strategies given what's likely to unfold in these four scenarios. Then take action and manage that action. On this, I have partnered with ELB. Andrew Civilli, the CEO, is where Peter Banfield, his contact information is there. Or you can write me directly, Chris W. at aiLeaders. But I think we all have to be proactive. Individual, family, organization, doesn't matter. This is coming. You got to play smart bets, risks, opportunities, and safe plays. That's what needs to be on your mind. Thanks for your time today. I'm happy with what is remaining, Casey, to field any questions people might have.
Awesome. I don't see any questions now, but I did want to just thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us, Chris. And thank you all for joining us. We have more powerful sessions headed your way. So we'll see you very soon. Thank you so much.